We're live. We're calling the meeting to order. It's February 28th. This is a regularly scheduled NID meeting. So please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Hi, Division 2.
Here.
Division 3. Here. Division 4.
Here.
Division 1.
Here.
Division 5.
Here. All right, so now it's time for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. And welcome.
Hi. I'm beginning to think I represent the public. My name's Don Conan, and I had a couple of questions that you don't need to be answered right away. But does NID sell their electricity to PG&E? And are there other companies who are willing to buy it? So I'm not a great fan of PG&E. I never have been, but PG&E's profit last year was $2.24 billion, and they're asking for a rate increase. That's nearly 25% more than the year before. There seems to be this cozy relationship between the governor and the legislature and the PUC, CPUC, and Pacific Gas and Electric. The Gas and Electric ask for a raise, and they usually get it. In 2022, they got an 8% raise. Of course, inflation was going crazy. 2023, they got 8.9%. 2024, they're going to be asking for 12.8%, and in 2025, and I don't believe this number, 4.5%. So I've given you that chart of their income. I wish we were making that kind of income off the electricity we sell to them. And the PUC should be called the California Pacific Gas and Electric Utilities Commission, because they seem to do anything they want. Now, the question is, what can we do about it? And the answer is nothing. It's going to be the way it is. But we do sell electricity. And I am wondering if when I was involved before, it seemed that we had some contracts coming up in 23 and 24. So I'm wondering if we can write into our contracts that when PG&E gets their 12.8% raise, then we should also get a 12.5% or 12.8% raise. We should mirror what they are.
Idea.
They, if we're selling electricity for 10 cents a kilowatt and they're selling it for 30 cents a kilowatt, and they get a 10% raise, and we get a 10% raise, the ratio of money they make is still the same. The problem is they're raising these rates. They're making a fortune, over $2 billion, and we should be a part of that pie. So there's nothing we can do about PG&E's raises, but we could consider contracting that when PG&E gets a raise on the rates, we should get a raise on the rates. The other thing PG&E's got going on, and this is where the legislature comes in, they passed a bill. We generally, in general, we insure PG&E against wildfires. They have a thing called the wildfire fund charge, and every month you'll see that on your bill. Mine this month was $3.33. They also have something on your bill called hardening fund, and that was $1.51. So here's PG&E getting funded to protect us from wildfire. And when the legislature gets involved in this, when they passed that law, they said these funds can only go up so high. There's a cap to them. But they still keep collecting the money. And whatever goes over that cap, you know where that money goes? The general fund. So not only are we paying PG&E, basically insuring them, but we're also funneling money to the legislature. You know, it's only $4.84 times the number. I think just in our area, we have 85,000 customers, so you need to realize how much money a month they're taking in and basically not doing anything with it. So I have given Karen there a chart of what they made last year, and we share that or whatever you want to do. And I appreciate the time, and hopefully we can increase the amount of money we make somehow on the electric, because I think we're really being taken advantage of by PG&E, if we're selling to PG&E. I don't know if there's any other market out there, but they're killing us. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment for items not on the agenda. We'll move to the consent agenda.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second. I was waiting for Chris.
All right, any public comment? Directors? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Division 2,
Aye?
Division 3. Aye. Division 4,
Aye.
Division 1,
Yes.
and Division 5.
Yes. All right, let's get on to the general orders. 4A, budget to actual reports. The fiscal year 2023, order number 4.
Good morning, everybody. Sandy Miller, Director of Finance. Bringing you a quarterly update here. So
Move the microphone just a little closer, I think.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Right,
thank you. So we're just going to give you a quick update here on the Q4 budget to actuals. So that's our end of our last year, 2023. And some things to point out is that we're still in audit right now, so there's a lot of missing accruals and things like that. So although it is through the end of the year, we have not booked revenues and expenses. We're still working through reconciling a lot of our larger topics like the OPEB and pension, debt, depreciation, so we won't see those things in here. Also, I did want to point out we are scheduled to do our annual audit a little earlier this year, so we're trying to push it up and get on a good timeline. So we have the auditors out at the end of April through that first week in May. So work that audit out, and we hope to present to you sometime in June. So we will just go over the summary pages here real quick. It's on page 10 of your PDF. So we have the summaries for the revenues, is the first page there. And as I mentioned, some of them are not, quite at 100%, because we still are working through those accruals. So we have done some of the accruals. So how we're doing it this year is January is over, so we assess the month of January 2024 and book whatever revenues came in back to 23. So included in these numbers are the property taxes. So there's about 13 million roughly, I think about 9 from Nevada County and a little over 2 from Placer County. So those are in these numbers.
Is that the total just for the quarter, not for the year?
No, just for the quarter.
Yeah.
Just for the, and so then some of the other ones that exceed budget, we've talked about recreation before, so, coming out of COVID and all that, they've kind of ramped up. Also, there was the 10% increase, which that was not budgeted for. So in the future, we've adopted those increases, and so we'll account for those increases in the budget. Other than that, you'll see Fund 70, so there's some monies in there. So if you remember Fund 70, that's our kind of overhead. And so what happens in there, there's $490,000, and so that's like grants and insurance claims and things that aren't necessarily budgeted for, so that's why you'll see that. And then the second half of that are the transfers in and out. So we book those throughout the year, and the only kind of outlier there would be the water fund, and that is because we're still reconciling through the debt and we have to finish off our transfers for the year. So the revenue side, Then we'll jump over to that next page, that next PDF, to talk about the expenses by fund. Again, you'll see the expenses may be a little bit lower, and again, we have not booked those accruals. So as you know, we get invoices coming in January, February, part of March, but mostly January and February, so we'll comb through those and we'll back those ones that pertain back to 2023. Some of the funds, like the capital funds, those will probably remain a little bit lower, and that's just due to some projects not being complete. You will see we'll be bringing an item here in March to kind of ask for a budget amendment to roll some of those that we did not finish, so. Coming. And then the transfers out, they're all at 100%, so we're right in line with all of that. Any questions?
I just have a quick question on this expense summary page under the encumbrances. Is it accurate or sort of accurate to say that the amount of the encumbrances, roughly $4 million, are what will then be eventually booked over on the actual side, or are there still more to come that aren't in the encumbrance?
So the encumbrances, those are all, so if we take the actuals plus the encumbrances, that'll be like our total expenses.
That's what I was getting at.
And
I
so those
didn't
are
know.
mostly open POs that we have not yet received the invoice for. And so our purchasing team has gone through and done a good closing out and worked with the departments really heavily. Most of these are related to CIPs, and some of those are just kind of placeholders. About $4 million, we probably aren't gonna spend all of that. So what that means is that will be released and not spent in last year. And then when we come to bring back this budget amendment in, say, March sometime, we'll be looking at probably around a couple million, depending on what projects that we're gonna ask to re-budget for 2024.
Can I ask a question on the, kind of the net position line? So how much do you anticipate that net position changing with the additional entries that need to be accounted for?
Good question. I don't have that off the top of my head. If you kind of look at last year, 2022, you know, we're pretty consistent year over year. I don't think there's anything too crazy swinging, but we still do have a lot more work to do for the audit, reconciling the big ones, right? So the depreciation, the pension, the pension and OPEB can swing from year to year, as we know. So I don't want to give you a number that is way off right now at this time, but we will be bringing, you know, a true up on this Q4 in the audit back.
Okay. I just noticed that there's quite a difference between our budgeted net position versus our current actual net position. Depreciation would not be reflected in this, would it? I mean, at any point in net position?
It is going to be a book expense, the same with the OPEB. So what we're trying to do this year as well is change our GL structure, our accounting structure a little bit to pull out those book adjustments, if you will, depreciation, OPEB, pension, so that we can show you a better representation of those items versus the actual cash items. So
yeah, that would be helpful.
in the past, we've been all commingled together, if you will, in the same account. So we're doing pretty good this year. We're caught up, so we have a little bit more time to kind of reclass and move those, I call them below the belt accounts, because they're really, you know, book adjustments, there's appreciation and things like that. So we want to be able to identify those versus what is actual cash.
Yeah. Okay,
And that's
thank you.
a big chunk. Last year it was a big chunk. We saw that in the OPEB. So, yeah. Separate.
Yeah, thank you.
That's kind of all I had on this quick update. Like I said, we're gonna work through, you know, March is our pretty busy month. Things kind of wind down with invoices coming in for the prior year, so we'll continue to reconcile and get through the debt, pension, OPEB, and all those larger items. And we're really hoping to wrap it up by June and then kick the budget off.
Amazing.
All right.
Yeah, very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Any more questions? No? All right, thank you. Quite timely.
Is my memory correct that you typically have a motion to receive and file?
I think we don't have typical.
You can.
We have been,
I
yeah.
make a motion to receive and file.
I will second that.
We've had public comment on that, so roll call, please.
Okay, Division two,
Aye?
Division three,
Aye.
Division four,
Aye.
Division one,
Yes.
Division five.
Yes. All right, let's move on to the workshop items, 2024 major initiatives.
All right, I will handle this one, and we can ask for assistance from staff as we need to. I would just caution you that your tablet is a little difficult to read right here. Trevor, I don't know if you can zoom in.
I can zoom.
Okay, all right.
And I brought magnifying glasses.
All right. Or you might just want to review your packet. So the purpose of this item is to share with the board the items that staff are making a priority to work on over the next year. These are items that are a little bit outside of the normal operational duties we do on a daily, monthly basis. These items are a little bit different than the board strategic priorities. So if you'll recall, I think it was in June or July, I brought forth an update on the board strategic priorities, which the board had adopted in April, and those have their own timelines. One of the items based on some feedback I've received from board members is I'm going to kind of take this staff initiative list and the board strategic priority list, and I will combine them. And so when I come back for the review prior to kicking off the budget, I will present them combined as one. So I think that will be helpful in the better understanding the totality of the work. The items are identified by department, starting with administration, and then the colors, I know the spreadsheet's a little colorful, the colors are just to indicate priority that staff has provided. And so peach is high priority, yellow is medium priority, and then the white is low priority. Many items from last year have been completed or otherwise removed from the spreadsheet. So once I do kind of the combination, we'll kind of start being able to track year over year. So we'll also start tracking, we'll reformat this so it's easier to see what's been completed and then what is associated with board priority or not. So for general administration, there's quite a few things going on. A lot of our time lately has been associated with legal issues, but also with specifically the Bay Delta Plan update. As the board's aware, that could be pretty life-changing to NID. We have been spending a lot of time and effort on that particular endeavor. And a lot of it has been in the form of the voluntary agreements, and then the other part is kind of watching the regulatory process and commenting and participating in that particular effort. So we have made fairly good progress in the voluntary agreement for NID. We will probably provide an update in the next couple of weeks. We're currently working on an implementation agreement. We've met with several agencies this week regarding some of our habitat proposals, and so look forward to additional information. That particular item will still likely be time consuming for the next full year. And it needs a lot of effort, not just from executive staff, but also from Dustin and his team.
And that's still MOU stage or even going beyond?
Yeah, so their MOU has been, we have not signed on to the MOU yet. We do have a term sheet. We're still working through the habitat portion of the term sheet. And then we are drafting an implementation agreement that goes along with that package. And the implementation agreement just details out more of the term sheet. It's a little bit of a challenging process because we're having to negotiate with several agencies at the same time, and they're not always on the same page. So we're kind of doing a little bit of rock fetching. We seem to have at least a meeting a week with the agencies
still working on it.
They're not on the same page with each other, or not on the same page?
They're not on the same
with
page
us?
within their own agencies either,
Correct.
so.
It's fun, huh?
Okay.
Is that on purpose, or?
I don't think so. I think there's, yeah, I think it's just part of the bureaucracy, but I also think there's just differing levels of knowledge specifically regarding our system and habitat on the Bear, Yuba, and Auburn Ravine, some differences of opinions, outside influences. I don't think it's on purpose.
Outside influences.
There's a lot of different fishery groups that are very interested in what we're doing or not doing. And so we're having to consistently navigate those because they don't agree with each other either. So we're trying to navigate with several people as well as our partners with South Sutter. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I think we're making headway. You know, we take 4 steps forward and 3 back. So we're getting through that. Greg is still working on the Yuba River salmon reintroduction. That is moving forward right now. Yuba is sponsoring salmon reintroduction above bollards into the North Fork of the Yuba. We're still monitoring that situation carefully because if salmon were to be reintroduced into Middle Yuba or South Yuba, it could pose some challenges for us. That is a little bit on the back burner. They're doing some pilot studies on a rotary screw trap to capture fish this year, so we'll continue to participate in that working group just to ensure that our interests are protected. The state file water right application, as the board is aware, we're still navigating that particular process. It's essentially a legal procedure. We still have routine status hearing updates with the administrative hearing officer. And we have a status hearing next week. What is that, March
6th.
Yeah, March 6th, we have another status hearing. We've had some protest discussions with South Sutter. As you'll recall, they filed protests against us and we filed protests against them. So we're still navigating that particular issue. So stay tuned and we'll discuss some of that a little bit more in closed session today.
And the outcome is just on the Plan for Water, and we have 1 or 2 more meetings for the Plan for Water.
Correct. So we'll have a more thorough discussion related to that today in closed session. We've been working on a retention policy for some time. Chris and her team are getting ready to present to the management team the proposed retention policy schedule. And then we'll bring that to the board for input. Retention is real challenging for a public agency. Every time you get a Public Record Act request, if you have mounds of paper documents that we used to have, it can be extremely challenging from just a logistical perspective, but also from a legal perspective. So we're really going to be trying to tighten that up. So I would anticipate we'll see something probably March, April timeframe coming before the board for input. And that goes for electronic files, video, voice recording, as well as emails, any type of paper document.
You're talking about retention of documents, not people.
Correct, retention of
I read that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
After the MOU with the employees was completed, we have embarked on completing an overhaul of our personnel rules, which is a significant undertaking because it is a meet and confer item with the union. So we will be proposing to the board a wholesale update to all personnel regulations. There's a couple of reasons for it. One is to ensure more compliance with current state and federal labor law. The second item is to ensure we are consistent with our current MOU for the employees. And the third is to remove inconsistencies between the MOU board policy and then the personnel rules and regulations. It's a real important endeavor for us to have a solid set of personnel rules and regulations. So we are taking off that. We have Greg and Naomi have a series of meetings scheduled for the next 6 months related to, for meet and confer with the union. So it'll be a long haul that we'll get through it at some point. So I would anticipate that probably coming back within a year time frame. Staff alignment, we're still continuing to work on staff alignment, which includes succession planning, but also having redundancy within our staff. We have a lot of very niche areas of expertise within staff, so we're really trying to get cross-training completed and understanding what cross-training needs to be completed, not only to make sure we have coverage if someone's gone, but also for succession planning. So we're going to continue to work on that item. It is a lower priority, but we do chip away at it little by little. Finance, we're still in the middle of our finance systems and process improvement initiative. They've made tremendous headway over the past couple of years. They're doing just a wonderful job. Our next goal in sight is to finish our cleanup and revision of policies so that we're prepared for the transition to a new ERP system, which is our financial system. That is going to re-kick back off in September. So we are continuing to do all the cleanup. One of the things we're trying to work through right now is pooled cash. And that is essentially how cash comes into the district and then gets distributed amongst the funds. It has never been done properly for normal practices here, so we're continuing to work on that. There's some system issues, but we're hoping to have those resolved. And then have a full system in place once we move into the ERP upgrade. Cost allocation study, Sandra just put out the RFP. We only received one response, so we did extend the deadline for submittal by a few weeks. So look forward, depending on the amount of the contract, we'll be bringing a contract back to the board for consideration if the amount requires it. It's kind of borderline as to whether it will or not. So what this will do is update our cost allocation formula that we use to allocate the overhead expenditures in Fund 70, the three major operating funds. Currently, we're just using a fairly simple equation that's based off of revenue, staff, those types of things. Full cost allocation plan will also allow us to develop a fully burdened rate for staff, which will then feed into how we set our regular fees, so that we have full cost recovery for any of the activities we charge for.
So we'll have that for the 218 process.
Yeah, we should. It doesn't go all that much into 218, but it does.
It helps.
It helps, yeah. The water rate study, we have been working on the water rate study. We did have a little pause related to Plan for Water. Plan for Water is coming to an end. We have been working with an outreach specialist who specializes in outreach for water rates to ensure that the community is informed. And due to, our timing is we're going to slide it out a little bit due to the national election happening in November. It's really challenging for the community to participate in a water rates process without it kind of getting lost in the larger political debate that is going on right now. So we will be timing that, so we will be going more public with the public portions of hearings and those things after the federal election. And then that means we will be sliding into 2025. And then we're going to have to coordinate with Chip and his team related to raw water rates because of the timing of the billing, and then take into consideration when we continue, if we continue with twice-a-year billing or if we go to some type of monthly recovery system.
So Jen, I have a question. So with regard to this, does that mean then that the current, both raw water and treated water rates will remain the same?
They'll remain the same till they are raised.
So we don't have I can't remember, we don't have a built-in like COLA.
Yeah, you had a built-in COLA, it ran out 2 years ago, and then prior to that, the board had decided not to implement it.
Okay.
We have been increasing the regular fee rates. That I
understood, yeah, I remember that.
Right.
But, so this really kicks the can down the road on recovering, you know, what we had talked about having, you know, some increases in the rates themselves. So
We'll have rates for next year.
Yeah, you should have rates.
But see, I thought we were
2025.
gonna have rates for this year, for 2024.
Well, that was our original plan, but
Yeah,
Plan for Water
okay.
has gone about 6 months longer.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
So, how many years has it been since we've had a rate increase?
It hasn't been since I've been here, so you'll have to forgive me.
It was 2018.
So my.
No, we had
Well,
one.
we had, yeah.
Well, that was the process, but then it
So
carried.
you had a
forward
rate
couple
increase
years.
right before I got here.
Yeah.
About a year before you got
And
here.
then that was the end of the 5-year rate increase included in the 218 study?
They cut the 5-year to 3 years.
Right, we did a 3-year
Oh,
back
no.
then.
So I guess my suggestion is that we do some communication about the fact that we are gonna hold rates again,
Right,
you know, and
Yeah.
right.
for customers, because, and what they can expect. So, you know, build up the communications that you can expect that in January of 25, we'll begin to have a public process about a new rate structure. I just think that, you know, it's easy to not recognize that you haven't had a rate increase,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't enter your mind, but then when you get a rate increase, you're like, wah!
Yeah.
So I just think we could do a little bit of communication and just say, we've been really holding the line on finances, we've been working on the plan for water, on our master plan, so that we really understand our longer-term capital needs, and then, but we need to make some adjustments coming forward. So I get where you want to do your major public outreach later. I just think we should do something earlier.
Yeah, we certainly can put some information out. We're gonna really start the public can be overwhelmed with the amount of information that comes out in rate studies.
Mhm.
It's a lot of information.
Right.
So we're gonna have a very thoughtful layout of process or information being disseminated over the next 9 months. So just because we're not gonna have a rate increase this year, doesn't mean we're not gonna be busy doing the things we need to be doing. So we'll certainly do that.
And normally, we only have one meeting because of Thanksgiving and Christmas in November, December. Can we look at increasing that a little bit to get a jump start?
We can, I have not laid out the actual schedule yet. Once the schedule is laid out, I will bring it back to the board for input. One of the challenges is if you know, if you want it really easy and not have any protests, you bring rates forward between Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Right.
but that makes the public really mad.
Yeah.
So.
I would not support that.
Yeah, so we will, because we've kind of slid everything, we're kind of relaying back out our strategy. I think probably, once some decisions are made in the next month or so about the plan for water, we'll have a really good idea of what we're gonna do. Then give me maybe 2 meetings and I'll bring back a schedule for you.
Thank you.
Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, one of my concerns is because we have not had a rate increase for so long, and we went through that period of extraordinary inflation,
Right.
you know,
Right.
since we've had a rate increase, and now we're pushing this out even further. I'm concerned that the rate increase, had we done this a couple of years ago, would have been X, but now it has to be
3X.
3X,
Right.
or, you know, or whatever.
It doesn't correlate exactly like
Uh-huh.
that. We have also been able to store away quite a bit of cash, which
Right.
can be used to offset future rate increases.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, ideally, you don't do a 3-year rate program, you do a 5-year rate program.
Yes. Right.
But, you know, a lot of agencies get themselves in this position. I'm not overly concerned. We have been very mindful of our spending,
Mhm.
specifically from a capital perspective. So we're not in terrible shape, but we need to bring forth a rate program.
And there's no way that we can, in this intervening time, have something to bridge it, like you said, just like a 2% or something?
Right.
No, okay.
And I think it's time to say, you know, credit to everybody for cutting costs and
Boy,
keeping
no
it
kidding.
down.
Well,
That was huge.
that's my observation and my question, how comfortable you feel with the budget by pushing them off to next year.
I'm comfortable, very comfortable.
I'm assuming you have to be.
Yeah.
Or we wouldn't be.
We've been
talking
able
about
to
this.
save actually a lot of money. So,
Okay, good.
we've been very diligent on saving money. In fact, I just moved some additional money into investments just this week, so we're looking good.
I think the other thing is, we're so much better positioned to understand what the rate should be, because now we will understand what our capital requirements are.
Right.
That's period. And I think, I mean, I'm not saying that we didn't analyze that in past rate packages, as I'm sure we did, but I feel like the thought going into long and near-term capital requirements is gonna be much more in-depth than it has in the past, and that helps us to be
Right.
better
Right.
in our communication and better in setting rates.
The next thing that you will see that's integral to rates is gonna be the 5-year capital program,
Mhm.
and that is
Right.
coming at the first or second meeting in March. the second meeting of March. So that it really is what kicks off a lot of what we do behind the scenes, to inform the 5-year rate process.
Mhm.
Because we essentially look at a 5-year capital program and a 10-year capital program. And once we have everything set, so we've done a lot of work, right? We've opened up the Fund 70, we've pulled out the overhead expenditures, we opened up the capital fund. We've been doing all of this kind of pulling apart and reorganizing, all to set up a rate program moving forward will not be as painful to go into rates.
Right.
Excellent.
You guys have done amazing work.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
In fact, I was just looking at the first 5 things of here, and I thought, wow, you know, that just is enough. I mean, they've got all these different pages.
And we got pages of it.
Yeah, it's impressive, really, what you and staff have been able to do.
That deserves all the credit.
When do you anticipate, raw water billing going out?
They go out in April. When do raw water bills go out, Chip? April?
Bills will go out
March, yeah. 'cause
March
they're due-
before
they're-
April 15th.
There was a lot of complaining last year that the discount, the 5% discount, there wasn't enough time from the time that they received the bill to make the payment. So, if we're not doing a water rate increase, maybe we can get those bills out sooner.
We will get them out early this year. That was part of the reason we came to the board for normal water declaration.
Mhm.
Part of the bill.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be helpful. A couple of the big accounts mentioned that last year.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is, you know, I've seen this firsthand at a local city in my area, going through this. And nobody's gonna care when you put the rates out, what happened until the rate came out, right? So, it was brutal. You know, they, for a myriad of reasons, basically doubled the price, for many people, and, it's brutal.
It is brutal, and it's, you know, it's difficult, it's hard times for people out in the community right now, where they're still dealing with a lot of inflation. You know, our job is really to help everybody understand what goes into rates, and then to be very careful about not having, you know, enormous rate hikes. There's some smoothing that needs to be done,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
we'll be thoughtful about it. But that's also one of the reasons why I try to keep the finances so tight. And we have been making some hard choices related to staffing as well as budgets in preparation for this, so they're not gonna, so they don't take that giant doubling jump.
Yeah. It'd be appreciated.
Sure. The next item is connection fee study. Those kind of go tandem with the 5-year capital program. So connection fees are for pieces of infrastructure that support new service. So that will also be a little bit going on a parallel path with water rates, but that will come before water rates comes. It's a much less intensive public process. I already spoke about public cash. We're continuing to work on that. Reserve policy, we're also, we're having a lot of discussions related to reserves right now. Reserves play a lot into rates, and so that will be coming before the rates come. As the board knows, we've been focusing on PERS unfunded liability as well as OPEB obligations, and we'll continue. We're feeling really comfortable with OPEB. I'm not feeling really comfortable with unfunded liability. So you'll really start hearing us ramping up the discussions related to unfunded liability.
What does the A stand for in UAL? Unfunded liabilities?
Unfunded accrued liability.
Accrued, thank you. That's a big bad word.
Yeah, it's a scary word.
Scary word, yes.
All right. Moving on to the next one is operations. Chip and his team have their hands full right now. They're doing an excellent job, but their hands are full because of all the regulations. There's been intensive regulations changes related to reporting from a conservation perspective, but also from water rights. So Chip and his team are enhancing our water right tracking and reporting systems. They are continuing to work towards that effort. It is a lot, very intensive work, takes a lot of staff time. So we will continue going through that process. Water diversion data, along with this same vein, more regulations related to hourly monitoring, Lead and copper rule reporting, there's old lead and copper service lines still, and there's a regulation that you have to inventory them. And it's challenging because some are on our system, but most are on private property. So we're trying to navigate through that.
We have to account for them.
Yeah, right now, that's what they're saying, is we have to account for them. But there is some private property issues that we're trying to deal with, whether you do a self-certification or if you send staff out.
Come on up.
Come on up,
Chip. I have a question about this.
Well, it was like, we're gonna identify where we have lead or copper.
We also have, it's the whole water system, so we also
The
have.
whole water
Mhm.
system.
So our treated water lines, our responsibility stops at our meter. From the meter to the house is the customer's responsibility. The new lead and copper rule requires us to create an inventory to classify what materials both sides of that line are. But we can't trespass on their property to find out. So
Yeah.
we're currently working on a mailer to customers to respond back with what they have, just so we can inventory.
While you're up, new conservation regulations from the state,
There's-
what were they?
So we talked about that, the mapping and all of that.
Yeah,
The current mapping of the district shows that we are meeting our conservation regulations until 2035 or something like that. That is as of today. That is a ever-changing topic, and there's some argument that the mapping is not very accurate. So I imagine sometime in the future that will change, but as of right now, we're doing okay.
so I had a conversation with one of my neighbors and just saying, hey, make sure everything you're using is public benefit, you're doing the conservation as much as possible, because this is coming. But they're not going to that level where they're going on individual ranches and farms.
No,
Not yet.
and the regulations as they're written today put the onerous on the water agencies and not the individuals.
And it's aggregated.
Yeah,
And the
it's in
what?
total.
We, as a district, will get a total budget for everybody to use, and then it's up to us to determine who's using too much. The state doesn't go to that level, to the individual. They put it on NID.
So we'll have to do their enforcement.
Correct.
And that's how it is currently.
Yeah.
So Chip, my question goes back to the lead and copper. Is this a new regulation is there a problem with water getting contaminated or?
So this is all from Flint, Michigan. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Basically, Flint, Michigan changed their treatment process.
Right.
And then in turn inadvertently leached lead out of all the lead lines and went to the customer's taps.
Completely.
So that changed EPA's lead and copper rule for
Okay.
everybody. I'm happy to report that in all of our investigations, so far we have not found a single lead service line in our system. But we still have to comply by October with a full inventory of what.
So were they old and we're not that old here?
That's the key, yes. Most of our treatment plants were, 1969,
Right.
1970. It kind of moved away from lead at that point in time already.
Okay.
In fact, I think the first anti-lead law was in 75.
So we still have to go out and survey it all?
Yeah.
Okay. Another job to do.
Yeah.
So we're also working on new requirements for cross-connection control, which requires us to have some specialized staff on board. You'll see us coming forth with some revised job classifications. So cross-connection control is essentially ensuring there's no cross-connection between a non-potable water source or sewer and treated water. And so there's a whole list of rules and things
right.
you have to do.
Backflows and.
That's what
yada,
backflows,
yada, yada.
yep. So we will be continuing to make adjustments as we need to be in compliance with regulations. CHIP's team is working on the aquatics outage notification, so this is revising, some of the notifications after, is this related to pesticides?
Yes.
It sounds
Yeah.
like it's pesticides in the water.
Yeah, that's what I thought. My eyesight is just as bad, I think, as everyone else's. So currently, there's outages when we spray the canals,
Right,
and so we're
right.
working on those items.
Outages,
Canal outages, when they shut the canal off and they're spraying.
Does it
For
apply,
aquatics.
does it apply when putting copper in the water?
yeah, well,
He's saying yes.
Yeah.
Does it apply to all the pesticide applications?
So this is, we do this every year. We send notification to the customer of what days their canal will be subject to aquatic we control applications.
Right.
Copper, like the state, if it's on the edges. We do that, this year, the system broke that used to give individualized information to every customer. So we made a more universal notification where people can go to our webpage and see all the canals. So we're simplifying this so that, as we transition into Tyler, that information is accessible to everybody through our webpage for customer service.
But you don't shut the canal off usually.
Sometimes we just go with extremely low flow, sometimes just depends on each location, and the notification tells them what to expect on their canal.
And on the organic side, just shut our boxes off for a couple of days.
We have been looking into expanding our source water quality sampling, which helps us dial in our chemical usage at plants. And the team has really been looking into communications in the field for operations. The operation of specifically the canal system is very labor intensive because of how large it is. So they've been working to find efficiencies in dispersal of labor on a daily basis. Chip has been working with engineering on updating capital projects for both treated as well as raw. And they are looking into a regulatory compliance software for treated water compliance. There's a lot of data you have to collect and report on at the treatment plants. We've been going through working on chemical pump replacement at all the treatment plants. Automated regulation for the canals, that was one of the board's strategic priorities. So they're looking for 2 locations this year. Remote, and that also is associated with remote flow reading as well as tailwater gauges. And then the constructed conveyance program, I think this is a really large opportunity for the district. A lot of our winter water usage is related on the raw water side to the constructed conveyance, that's the in-home raw water use. And it takes a lot of water to get that much water down to those people. So we are kind of starting to talk about different ways in which we can start to reduce the number of constructed conveyances, and which would be able to allow us to limit winter water use, which would save us a lot of water.
How many of those,
And labor.
how many of those do we have now, Chip?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Too many?
Updating the inventory, we'll get you a fresh number here.
Well, but what was it?
It was 200 and something, or?
No, it's much higher than that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
really?
think it's 1,200, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, it was like 1,200.
Yeah,
yeah.
so we're.
And
I had
how
to-
many
I
of
had
those
to
are
choose.
all constructed conveyance customers, or they're winter water and constructed
So
conveyance?
the 1,200 number is just the folks who are receiving the winter. We are reclassifying those to see in-home use versus just a winter water.
Oh, there we go.
There,
Right,
that's
right.
helpful.
That'd be more helpful, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Because
thank you.
there might be some opportunities for a tank program or
Right.
something else, so.
Right, I think that's a really interesting potential for water savings for us.
Mhm.
We're looking at, what, 40,000 acre feet? Some of it comes out of storage, and some comes from runoff.
Yeah,
So you
a
could
lot
run-
comes from runoff, but we'll take a look at it and bring something back.
Yeah.
And then the flushing program continues, that is, for the treated water systems. And then we're kind of looking at canal capital priority, just as we are with the treated plants.
So I have a question back on the constructed conveyance. Are we required by law to, I know that the opportunity to have water delivered in this manner runs with the property, so that when you sell, that right continues. Is that a legal requirement, or is it a practice that we have?
Yeah, I don't want to give a definitive answer at this moment, because I think I wrote myself a note coincidentally that I want to look at this again.
Mhm.
I think there is a compelling argument that NID does not have a legal obligation, but again, I want to look at it, so maybe I can do that, get back to the board.
Because I think that's the first thing I'd cut off. I mean, because why do we perpetuate this through that
Right,
practice?
There's a lot of consideration, whether or not we can cut it off, whether or not we can have some
well, do they have an
conditions.
alternative water source?
Once the property is sold, it will no longer
Create
be
the
provided,
alternative. Right.
whether if it
Well,
is
yeah,
required, can we do a
but what
tank
cost,
program, so
blah,
we
blah,
will
blah.
come back.
Yeah.
I like,
I mean,
I appreciate that.
ultimately, the customers who receive winter water have to sign a form that is attesting that they have an alternate water supply and they don't need this water for drinking or cooking.
I remember that.
Ultimately, that's somewhat of our protection in
Uh-huh.
state side, but again, we're revisiting that.
Right.
Updated numbers.
It's hard to navigate and operate that length of canal for that few customers. It's just not cost efficient.
Amen.
Amen.
Moving into maintenance, the next spreadsheet, they are doing a great job. They are also trying to just provide efficiency in a number of key areas. One is vegetation control. They've been doing a really great job of implementing a drone spraying program, which allows us to get in hard-to-reach locations or on the face of dams. So we're continuing to monitor that program.
Drone spraying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring
Very cool.
Yeah, we can,
Ag is doing
I'll
it.
just see what ag doing.
we'll
Yeah.
bring an item back.
Yeah.
We'll share it with you. It's really cool. Yeah, they
Yeah.
can spray the face of the dams with drones so that we're not having to scale them.
Awesome.
No more fun?
I don't know, the drones
Now we're
seem
gonna
fun
send-
too.
We're gonna set
I think drones are
up.
really
We're gonna
fun.
set drones up to do water samples.
You can fly all the canals,
No more helicopter
mow
rides.
the canals,
Well, look.
NID robots
I
everywhere.
like that.
Yeah.
And they are still working on centralizing fleets, so getting control and having a
Mhm.
well-run fleet system is important. They are also looking at canal rehabilitation, and that's really looking at, we're starting to focus on the canals. What modifications can we make that gives us the most bang for our buck, whether it is reduction of labor or saving of water?
Mhm.
So they are coming up with their list. Fleet reduction, we have a lot of vehicles that need to be surplus to auction.
Mhm.
Upgraded meter replacement program, they're about 85% complete. There was chip shortages that we were dealing with, so they're still moving forward with meter replacement. You'll still see items in the budget related to meter replacement probably for the next 2 or 3 years.
And this is for the
Badger meters.
Badger.
Badger.
I couldn't think of that word, thank you.
Yeah, but to be 85%
Yes,
is really good. I mean, I almost
good.
thought that had to be a typo.
I did too. I thought that number was turned around the other way.
Yeah.
Well, it's by the end of this year, so we're
But that's
probably
really great.
It is great.
65%.
Yeah.
That's moving.
Yeah, they do a big chunk every year. The meters are very expensive.
I know, but,
Oh, we
but,
couldn't even
you
get them
know,
in for a while.
somehow we.
You couldn't get them for a while. We usually spend, well, you'll probably see us spending $200,000 to $300,000 over the next
Mhm.
3 years, each year, over the
Right.
next 3 years.
Wow.
And then they've been doing a really good job of cross-training in, maintenance. We have made some staffing adjustments over the past few years to be able to move staff a little bit easier so that they're not getting so pigeonholed in one area or another, so they get both treated and the raw water side, which has been very helpful.
Just one quick one, on the meter replacement. So are we advertising that the homeowner can get an app and
We're not quite
monitor?
to that point yet. We will when we get there.
Because a man in Lake Wildwood went that extra step and immediately found another leak that saved him tens of thousands
Yeah.
of dollars in the house.
We're not to full-scale implementation of the remote monitoring yet, but we're getting close. All right, hydro, we're still working on FERC relicensing. I don't know if this will ever come off our list in our lifetime.
For kids, before Ken retires.
Yeah, there's a goal, kid.
Yeah. The South Yuba Canal transfer, as you know, is done, but now we are doing the work of adjusting, kind of initiating that system into our system. Ken and the hydro team have been doing an excellent job. We've still been relying on PG&E for some teaching, instruction, oversight type things. So that has been going well, and they're still kind of getting adjusted to the powerhouse. I don't know why this one is on hydro. It should have been on administration. We are doing IT, we've talked about this, an IT audit, which will end up with a master plan. As the board is aware, Setaru went away. The vendor no longer supports Setaru and is no longer supporting that product. So we don't have a current work order system in hydro. Maintenance is still utilizing Lucity. Instead of going and finding a separate one again, we are going to be looking at Tyler's work order system, because it's not very feasible or very likely we're gonna find another third-party proprietary work order system that will mesh with Tyler.
Mhm.
So that was an unfortunate situation. Looking at a FERC implementation plan, we'll talk about that, at a later date. The previous plan was a little cumbersome, so we're trying to make things more efficient. One of our strategic efforts for this year is looking at the Combi North Powerhouse revenue. So
Right.
remember, that's the one that is coming up,
Mhm.
the contract's expiring in October, November timeframe. So we're looking at some alternative sources for selling that power.
Bitcoins are way over 60,000 today.
Yeah, it took back off again.
It should.
And then PG&E cross-training.
What about the new building?
The new building
Oh,
is
yeah,
just in the
that's-
so remember, items on this are not included, not regular projects aren't included, but it's moving forward. They're working on roof and architecture this year.
Jennifer, so the gentleman who spoke during public comment had a question about, you know, our contracts with PG&E. And I'm wondering if this is a point in our discussions that we can talk about it a little bit. It's like, can we get more money from PG&E, or we just,
Well, you always try to get more money.
right?
But I don't know that it's likely to tie it to any of our percentage of cost to their
Uh-huh.
profit. But we definitely will try to leverage whatever we can, because we do sell alternatively to other sources than PG&E.
I wondered if we had, I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
thought,
through those JPAs.
uh-huh,
So that NC JPA, which then third party sells the electricity, so we'll continue to work on those efforts.
I'm wondering if there's not a ceiling in the market for our wholesale power. You know, in other words, if we tried to get $1 and the market was 50 cents, we'd never get the $1, we just wouldn't be able to sell it, or,
The power market fluctuates almost daily, so it has a lot to
Right.
do with what's going on
Okay.
in the country, when there's big fires other places. It just depends on how
Mhm.
hot it is. Are there blackouts? Are
Yeah,
Texas having
okay.
issues again?
Yeah.
But recall, our big contract right now with PG&E, where we sell a lot of our power,
Mhm.
that's based off availability, not actually power sales. So that contract is a little bit different.
Yes, okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to engineering. Engineering's big task, we're gonna complete plan for water, and then we're continuing with CIP process, and right now we're focusing on that 5 and 10-year CIP, and then the master plans. All the master plans are, the big ones, that we're gonna be working on are obviously rod treated first, and then the watershed is also
Mhm.
kind of moving forward. It had started before, so we're continuing to work on that one. And then the design standards update. In the recreation, our big things are revenue analysis. We're looking at really trying to increase revenues wherever we possibly can. And then we're continuing to address some of the cash handling issues with remote cash collection at all the camp stores. Some of that, Monica's done a wonderful job. Some of that will be completely finalized with the new Tyler upgrade.
Mhm.
And that was a quick overview. So next
Wow.
time we come forward, we'll bring the board strategic priorities update, and this at the same time we'll combine it. And then we'll also, to Director Calder's point, there will be questions on capital projects. We'll bring a capital update forward too.
Everybody.
Yeah, that's very impressive, all the heavy lifting that's being done in the district.
Wait, no
By all
kidding.
the management team and the staff, so great appreciation for the hard work.
They've been doing a wonderful job.
So, any public comment? Seeing none, public comments closed, and we'll move on to 5B, policy update 3080, procurement. Discuss and provide direction on revised policy 3080.
I'll handle this one. So this policy is a complete rewrite of the current purchasing policy. That's why there's no red lines included in it.
Oh, did you already get the word from me?
I did.
From
So
who? Did you call?
No, I did not call.
No, I just sense all of this.
No, I don't believe it.
So,
No, I may have said, how come there's no red
That's a-
line?
I
she
figured
wasn't
it,
ratting you
I
out.
figured it out after about an hour ago. This is a total rewrite.
If I brought forth the red lines, you wouldn't be able to read
You
it.
did it, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah, no, I did
this,
not rat you out. I just said,
Somebody
she just
how come
asked
there's-
me where
no,
the
I
red
just
lines
asked,
were.
why isn't there a red line? It's a good question.
That's funny.
And to be fair, the board has asked for red lines and policies before.
Right.
So it's
Well,
not
we
an
had 'em a-
outlandish question.
No, we had them a lot before, and there's the old one, there's the new one, and I go, well, I have it in my book, I can go get it and read it all night.
You just wouldn't be able to read the red lines. So
Right.
I was saving you
So
from
I
the red
go,
lines.
this is a total rewrite.
It is, so if you'll recall, I brought this forth, fall, winter 2022.
Mhm.
And then I've rehashed it based on feedback from staff, but also trying to simplify it. Sometimes, especially when you're doing large financial cleanups or
Mhm.
policy cleanups, you tend to be a little bit overzealous, or at least I do, on having too many rules. And so sometimes it gets too detailed and then no one can read it. So I put a lot of items in tables, which just make it easier.
That is easier.
The biggest changes are related to the contract authorities, and exempt contracts. So I will
Right.
ask you to go to page 4, so section 3080, exempt contracts. This is one of those items, exempt contracts have always, in almost every agency, including this agency, just been done and not detailed out on what is an exempt contract or not, without any policy direction. And so I tried to actually memorialize what we do in practice, because there are a lot of things we don't have a choice on paying or not. Bank charges and fees, they're actual payments we make, but they're not lend themselves to purchasing.
Right.
So
Okay.
I have identified those. So annual membership dues, any annual membership, we propose those during the annual budgeting process.
Right.
So the board essentially votes on them, and then if you want to cut them, you cut them out in the annual budget. They don't lend themselves to bidding, because there's only one association. Utility payments, and then other contracts. So any other contracts that would be allowed to be an exempt contract, the approval of exempting that contract from all the rules would be only, so my approval or department head approval would only be up to our limit stated in all of the purchasing tables. Anything over that, it would have to be determined by the board, and in both cases, it would require documentation as to why it's exempt. It rarely comes up, but every once in a while, there's something weird that comes up, you have to pay. That doesn't lend itself to bidding or contracting. And then non-discretionary purchases, those are all of pension, OPEB, like the PG&E water purchase, which is also approved through the budget, one-time fees and permits, medical reimbursement payments, all of the insurance claims. We make several different types of payments associated with payroll. Those are somewhat identified. Before I move on from exempt purchases, does anyone have a question?
Mine's a general one about, I highlighted, exempt contracts, other contracts, the dollar amount, and the same in inventory purchases, how we come up with those numbers. They seem, in my little brain, they seem arbitrary, but I suspect that there's more backstory to the dollar amount.
The $100,000 amount that is shown under other contracts, that mimics the dollar amount that's shown in the purchasing authority table.
Okay.
So I try to just make it easy, everybody's authority stays the same, kind of regardless of what you're doing.
And then my question about the I'll finish my.
Oh, no, I'll talk about inventory
Okay.
in a second.
Okay.
But that gives you a lot more efficiency in operations to be able to do it.
Yeah, the other contracts, that, essentially what I'm saying is I don't have authority to exempt something that's outside of my normal purchasing authority, or the general manager doesn't, because that should come before the board. It's just trying to make that consistent.
So I have a question about the $100,000 limit. What is the limit under current policy?
So the current policy, there was a couple of items. So you'll recall, one of them I changed a while ago. And that was that the general manager used to be able to amend the budget appropriation. Was it up to $150,000 a year?
$600,000.
$650, $750.
Yeah,
I've taken that.
It was a source of It was an issue.
Yeah. That
It was an
ability
issue.
has completely taken away with the budget policy and the
Right.
resolution that approves the budget. So the general manager shouldn't be able to modify the appropriation, that should come before the board.
Mhm.
The current purchasing policy is general manager has up to $100,000, but then has the ability to change order anything without prior board approval up to 25%, or $300,000. And then that change order authority resets. And so that is addressed in this revision, that is gone. So the 100,000 is what we're doing now.
Mhm.
But now I make the change order authority $10,000 and it doesn't reset. So if we have $100,000 contract, I apply the $10,000 change order, and then, or we need 15% change order, I would have to come back to the board.
Right.
And the board would then have to approve that. So it just tightens everything back up, because between the budget, the ability for the general manager to modify the budget appropriation and the general manager to have all this, you could almost have unlimited change order authority.
Yes, that's kind of how it was. It's not
It's
good.
just not very transparent to the board,
Right,
so
right.
that was what
Right.
was said.
Serial changeover.
It is a serial change order.
Very
And you
good.
also see, a lot of these things we've been doing in practice already. So we have been, when we bring forth a contract, because it's mostly construction contracts,
Right, right.
when they're out of my authority, we will ask for a contingency to be approved, and then if anything exceeds that contingency, then we bring it back to the board.
Right. Awesome.
Emergency,
So I'm sorry to keep going, but, so the $100,000 level was established based on what you've seen as the typical, kind of high volume. I know an interest was to have high volume contracts, high volume, modest level dollar amounts, be able to be pushed through more quickly so that you're not hung up waiting for a board action on something that is gonna be approved. So is that how you established the $100,000 threshold, or is it based on what you see at other districts?
all of the above. The $100,000 is kind of that, you know, you really see things now kind of in between the $60,000-$90,000 range a lot. And then kind of larger projects tend to be over that 100,000. So it does seem like to be a good breaking point. You are seeing, just as everything's getting more expensive, you are seeing authorities getting raised up for most people. You see anywhere between, you know, 150,000 down to 25,000. $25,000 level, it would increase a lot of staff work because you'd be bringing forth a lot of items. And remember, none of these items, nothing I approve from a contract perspective is not budgeted for. So that should be reflected in the budget. Anything over 100,000, you're kind of getting into that capital project range, and that should be coming to the board. And also recall, one thing I did also do is that we do bring vehicles forward, even if they're under 100,000.
Right.
Vehicles and equipment tend to catch the,
Attention.
attention of the public.
Yes.
Yeah, and in my experience, even if the vehicle is 30,000, it needs to come to a public meeting, because people get very suspicious about vehicle and equipment purchases. So,
That's great.
I think that it's just easier
It's
to bring
really
in.
good.
Good idea.
And you also mentioned our motor pool, we're gonna be selling off part of it some time ago. How much percentage? 20%, 15%?
You know, I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'll have to take a look at that. I'll report back. I know we typically sell them through auction. I think that there is he's not here. I think they're getting ready for a big auction in the June timeframe. Sandra might know. But we'll report back.
We can't put it up on one of the local lots,
Oh, and sell it ourselves?
but their commission.
You could.
You can, it's just.
We're not very good at doing
Not
things like
very
that. It's like us being rental property landlords.
Right.
You wanna keep some things
It's
out.
like being a car broker.
Yeah, but some things out of public employees, yeah.
We can just
Take
have
a squatter out.
Yard sale out here in the parking lot.
We get big yards. We
Yeah.
can open our own used car lot.
Yes, we could.
I don't think so. But we'll report back on that. Inventory purchases, so this is something that's always bothered me. Inventory is also something I'm tightening up. Inventory currently is purchased off budget. So inventory are things we just keep in the warehouse. The amount of items kept in inventory in the warehouse grew significantly over COVID because of a lot of supply issues and those things.
Yep.
What happens with inventory purchases is because they're not kept on budget, they're booked as the inventory value is booked on your, basically on your balance sheet.
Your
It's not-
purchase price, right?
Yeah, and then it's not charged as an expense that hits the budget until they come pull it, it's charged to that department. So what happens is that you have a lot of shadow purchases that could be purchased. And one of the things that really bothered me was water meters, because the purchase is so high. So I could spend $200,000 on water meters, which is a legitimate purchase, but you would never know, because you would know if you saw the warrants, but that's it. It's not going to be hitting the budget to actuals, because it's getting booked as inventory, and then it's not getting booked as an expense till they pull it. So I wanted to put in some language to tighten up how inventory is handled, just so that there's a better handle on inventory. And so I'm lowering the threshold, I'm proposing to lower the threshold for inventory purchases to $15,000. So if we buy greater than $15,000 of bolts and screws, then that would be a normal purchase that's direct expensed out of the budget. It doesn't prohibit us from buying it, it just is more transparent by the method.
It shows you in real time, real dollars, what is actually purchased.
Yeah, so some of the challenges come, so I am more probably in tune to things being bought, money going in and out of the district, because I am annoying the staff and require the approval of all the purchase orders, but I do that for a reason, because it helps me know what's going on. If somebody wasn't doing, you could have a lot of things being purchased that general manager doesn't know about, the board doesn't know about, I just think it's
I think you're right.
a fraud issue.
But then how does the inventory, reflect, shouldn't it, how do I want to say this? Because you do an inventory and I come up with a dollar amount to give the income tax preparer, right?
Right, so yes, we run inventory every year, they're very diligent about tracking it. It is each category is counted one time per year, category switches every month.
Does that then show?
It's part of the audit This way, nothing's really changing except for anything over, the $15,000 over purchase, it'll be direct charged to the fund.
But does inventory show at the bottom of the ledger, bottom line, that we have increased our net position?
Yeah, you're just not seeing that,
But you're not
seeing it.
Okay.
It's kind of
So
the non-cash item.
it's in there, but it's not visible, right? If you haven't done this before with inventory.
Right, and some of it is a system restriction, so we'll be looking on modifying the system, so we'll still be able to track inventory, we're just handling it differently.
Okay. That was my question about the 15,000. This thing backwards, it'll be a direct expense, so it'll be expensed at that point.
Let me give you a good example, it just happened. And so and staff gets upset with me, not Sandra, but other staff. So they were going to they purchased inventory of riprap, does everyone know what that is? Like the big rocks?
Big rocks.
That we put at the end of pipes, canals.
Bunch of it free.
See, this is why I want my inventory fixed. So they purchase riprap 4 times per year, and they essentially, it might be 3 times per year, but whatever it is, they purchase it multiple times a year, and they use it. Well, there's no reason that should be placed on inventory, just direct expense it right away. Then all the finances are tied up, and you're not having this delay.
So I guess my questions are, is 15,000 enough? Seems a little low. My comment would be on, I think any inventory that we have purchased over the last 4 years, we make more money than we do in the open market. But we can't count it that way, can we?
We don't, you don't increase the value of the inventory you have on the books over
So it's
inflation.
not LIFO, FIFO, you last in, first out, or that type of thing?
No, we're getting still a better handle, so this is just in draft. Sandra's completing more of a review of what's on inventory and what's actually turning year to year, because a lot of it's not turning. You don't want to keep a lot of stuff
Exactly.
that you don't use.
So if it's not used within a year, or 2 years, or
I'll bet it depends on the item.
There's just well, so there's some items, like for treated water main repairs, there are like saddles we use to repair the pipe. Those would be very expensive, but you only need it if the pipe breaks, but you don't not want to have it for a specific size pipe. So we keep some things on hand all the time. You're always gonna do that. But do you need 95 shovels if you only use 12 a year?
the way my guys use shovels, yeah.
So remember, I'm very cheap, so and I'm a minimalist, so I think a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Sounds like you're trying to raise the consciousness of the purchasing authority so that they're thinking, if it's expensed in the current year, then it goes against your budget, and so you have less money to spend on other things.
Yeah.
So
Good
then
observation.
you're thinking, okay, do I really, if I'm gonna use it, cool, then I should expense it, and so I can spend that money. But if it's something that's gonna sit around for 4 years, then probably I don't want to expense it this year.
Yeah. We have one of the more well-stocked warehouses I've ever seen in my life.
Well, but I think that's to the credit almost, I mean, it costs so much money, I mean, I remember we were waiting for a year for parts.
It just
Just a
depends
couple
on what
years
it
ago.
is.
What it is, yeah.
And I stockpile stuff that I may not use for 10 years, but I'm making 80% on it, because the price keeps going up every year.
There's that.
And I can't get that stuff now because minimum orders are too much, and they're costing me out of even buying that product that I need, that packaging.
Don't worry, I am a minimalist and I hate spending money, and staff does push back on me, so I won't tighten it up too much.
Good.
I will try, but I
I
won't.
love well-stocked inventories.
We have a really well-stocked inventory.
I mean,
That's a great feeling.
it got to the point where I couldn't even get something anymore. And if I didn't have that packaging, I couldn't sell my product.
Right. We keep the things we absolutely need to keep. And one of the things, we're just looking at what's turning and what's not, and maybe all it means is we need to set some of the inventory triggers a little bit lower. You know, if we
Yeah,
only
right.
ever use 10 shovels, do we need the reorder set at 40 shovels? Probably not.
We might have got 20% off, we bought 85.
Right.
But, no, it needs to be tightened down. It just, if we don't use something in 3, 4, 5 years, we don't need as much of it. Yeah.
So we will report back. Next item is piggyback on cooperative purchasing. This is just standard language for, a lot of times, this happens a lot with vehicle purchases. We'll join a cooperative purchasing agreement, a big JPA, where we get deals on vehicles or equipment. Or, for example, gasoline, we piggyback off of, I think it's a SACOG contract for gasoline. Those are always real helpful tools because you can leverage purchasing power. And then going into bidding and quote requirements, this is where a lot of this did change just to simplify it. I do want to note that we have had legal review this, so I'm going to have them review it again after this conversation. So when it comes back before the board for formal vote, it might be changed just a little bit, but we'll redline that version. So we have informal quotes for bids, request for proposal, request for qualification, sole source. And then we go into contract requirements. I really simplified this piece. The contract requirements, we might change some of the names of the contracts a little bit. We try to mimic what we have now. And then the purchase is going into the authority tables. These are set by position, essentially. And so then you'll see anything over that $100,000 threshold has to go before the board. And then also the change order authorization is included in the table. And then for procurement of construction services, the big change. Yep.
On sole source, I'm wondering, it seems to me, I remember especially with Kean's work where it's highly technical and there tends to be a contractor, vendor learns something about the business that it benefits us to. So you have these reasons why sole sourcing is justified, substantiated. And so I'm just wondering if you might add that where a vendor has, I don't know, proprietary knowledge about our operation that would benefit from,
Quality of work.
well, I just remember that happens a lot with Kean's work, where
Right.
you don't want to start over, you don't want to have to go through another.
You don't want to
process.
retrain a
Right.
subcontractor for an
Because it's just a
extra
waste of
$10,
time.
or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I could add language in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It
Mhm.
does, for example, there's no way we're gonna switch our FERC relicensing consultant.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, let me,
Yeah, and why go through a contract or bidding process that is just a frustration to people who genuinely don't know this history, and they put a lot of effort into an RFP response, so.
right, let me add some language in there. That's a good point. Then the contract requirements, the big change is under construction, and it's not really a big change, it's essentially what we do now. We're just memorializing in policy, and that is a qualified bidder list. So that is a process that we've spelled out. We do it now, but it's not in policy, so this just formalizes a little bit more, and we had a lot of conversations about this before. The only change from what you saw before is I generalized some of the information collected into categories, just from the standpoint that, you go through it once and then you were like, we really should have asked for this, or we really should have asked for that, or we don't even look at that. So it just allows us to tweak information that we collect in order to make decisions.
So I wondered on that, because it's, every other year is the process, so, to me, it just seemed like, gee, wouldn't we want to do that more frequently to augment the list? Not necessarily review who's on the list, but try to get more vendors. Seems like the more vendors we have that are wanting to work with us, the better. And every other year, and I could see a vendor saying, well, we,
I want to be on your
it's
list, but I have to wait till.
And you just missed February was
Right.
the deadline, and
Right.
so now you have to wait for 2 years.
I thought we gave ourselves a little leeway.
And maybe you do, and I didn't.
Yeah, in
Or
terms
do we
of
just
being
talk
able to
about
bring
it?
somebody in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it,
I don't think we had the same comment. Let me work with Doug and see if we can't get some language
Mhm.
together.
I think just in optics too, it just feels like it's more inclusive of our community's business, and if we can augment that a little.
Yeah, sometimes you see contractors split off into two different
Yeah.
companies. We did, Doug and I had the same conversation, so let me see how we can work that in. And then the authorities for approving the contracts, they stay at that same level, and that's up in the table. It was just really the process. And then there's the surplus property. Surplus property related to, real property, land, homes, those kinds of things, has a specific process that is required by state law.
Right, yeah.
Other than that, we will surplus property underneath the section here, and that essentially has the same authority levels. And then we can utilize auctions or eBay or, whatever makes the most benefit for the district. Does anyone have any comments?
I was wondering how you decided to have the dollar threshold for the bidding process for under 4 million versus above 4 million. How did you establish 4 million as a threshold?
Well, a lot based off of Doug's input and just understanding big construction projects. You kind of get over that $4 million range, and you're really looking at some bigger contractors that are not around here, that are likely not to be on the list. And at that point, you would want more competitive bidding, and you'd probably be bringing in some bigger people from outside. We also talked to Contractors Association about it, and 4 million seemed to be reasonable based off of what we've seen in the past.
They can bond up to that.
It has a lot to do with bonding, has a lot to do with equipment. You get up over 4 million, you're talking about a big project.
And
A lot
out
of
of
them can't
area
handle it.
folks, probably too, yeah.
That's also where we do the local business, shut off, when it's 4 million or more, then they have to go through that process as part of the bid,
Okay.
which is to solicit at least, try to get at least 10% of local bidders, local
Mhm.
subs, concrete providers, et cetera,
Okay.
part of the contract.
I had the same question, Karen, and that's a great answer. I mean, it puts a lot more. It's not just arbitrary. There's
context.
some real
Yeah.
context to it.
No,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and remember, with all policies, if we're seeing prices continue to creep up, we might need to
Right.
raise that up, but we can
Mhm.
come back to the board and talk about it.
We're not gonna put a COLA in this, are we?
Yeah. And that's it. So
Okay.
based off the input, I had a couple of comments and revisions. I'm gonna send this back to legal, have the team look at it again, and then we will bring it back to the board for formal consideration, probably at the next board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Well done. So, any more director's comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll go on to item 6, general manager's report.
Just have a couple of quick updates. I had a very nice opportunity to present the plan for water progress to date to the Nevada County Board of Supervisors, and they had great feedback. We're very pleased with the board's actions to date and making it such a good community process. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting just the progress to date to the Placer County Fish and Game Commission, if anyone wants to come, 6 p.m. And then we are still working on VA items. I do know that we have had a number of members of the public come forth to the board as well as write letters to the staff related to the Gold Hill diversion removal request.
Mhm.
And we are still navigating that issue. There's a lot of disagreement between all the fishing community amongst themselves and the regulatory agencies as to whether salmon can even get up to Gold Hill or not. So stay tuned, we're still working through some of those issues. The Fish and Wildlife biologist himself said he doesn't believe fish can get up there, so he doesn't think it needs to be removed, but we're still continuing to talk through those.
And the way this was brought forward to us still catches me in the throat a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect with the fishery, group related to, and the larger community related to whose how that would work. We would not let a third-party nonprofit group modify in-water infrastructure for us. It's just a really difficult construction project, even when we do construction all the time. So there's a lot of challenges with in-water work, and we'd have to be ready for irrigation season, come April 15th. So there's not a lot of leeway for messing things up with that particular type of project. So I'll keep the board posted. They did ask for an update about that project at the Placer County Fish and Game Commission. They are very interested in the project. I don't know that they realized we owned the infrastructure, so I'll be essentially indicating the same thing there.
And just ask them how they would do it, huh? And still serve our customers, unless they want all our customers not getting,
Challenging. I mean, the board's aware of challenges we had with Hemp Hill, and that is pretty typical for major in-water work like that. You have a lot of regulatory eyes, a lot of environmental
Right.
conditions. It's just a challenging construction project.
big time.
Yeah. And then we have a big storm coming in.
Yay.
Hey.
Jeff, slow down the rain dance.
We're just picking up speed, maybe.
Yeah. Dancing harder and harder.
River dance.
Doing the river dance now.
God, great show.
Yeah, we're ready, staff's ready for it, we've been preparing, put extra staff on call, stage supplies, so we should be okay. We'll handle it. That's it?
Ian's gonna have to get the snowcat, the search and rescue snowcat up for Trevor.
I'm not making that trek to Reno on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think you may need to wait till Saturday night.
I'm just not going.
I think that's probably best. We'll have to come we'll come save
Yeah, we'll
you
have to
otherwise.
send search and rescue out for you.
Yeah.
That's right. That's it, thank you. Director's reports. Trevor, you want to?
Yeah, I had a opportunity to sit with Kylie, Lamalfa, and McClintock at the Sutter Club in Sacramento. It seems that water and fire on everyone's mind, so that's good to hear from our local representatives. I think that the climate is appropriate to get something done over the next couple of years. So hopefully we can keep working with those folks.
Was there a specific ask? Pardon me for interrupting, but I just
It
wondered,
was-
it's like, was it just like, oh, Trevor's here so we can talk about water?
No.
Or was it like Trevor was coming and saying, hey, we need money for this, and, you know, I'm just curious.
So when 3 congressmen get in a room, I'm not the subject of the conversation. So, no, they were there for their reasons, and I just had an opportunity to talk to them. So, we have ongoing
Money.
Dialogue with Kylie, trying to set up a follow-up in the coming months here. So that'll be the appropriate place to make the ask, yeah. But I'm just trying to keep it in the forefront of their mind.
That's great.
What we're doing here,
Wonderful.
yeah. It was interesting, 3 congressmen, and I actually had the opportunity to vote for each one of them at one point. In
Oh,
the
right,
that's
right.
in the
funny.
last 8 years.
Yeah.
Same here.
So, that was interesting to see a small venue like that, and their concern for what's going on in the state. Then we also had the Placer County Farm Bureau yearly meeting. Great food, great people, 4-H, FFA, did all the dinners and stuff, so that was great. Spoke to Placer RCD there. They are actually, I talked to Jennifer about this, they're managing the storage rebate program for PCWA. They actually do the outreach and the marketing and the whole thing for them, and they've offered to do the same for us. And they said that they believe there's actually a provision where they can do it for both Placer and Nevada County, even if the Nevada County RCD doesn't want to jump in. So,
Which I think they do.
they probably will, I assume, yeah. So, they've had some success at getting people to buy storage,
Working
containers.
together is really a good.
Yeah, they're really good with the outreach part, so I think that it's prudent to take them up on their offer, at least have the dialogue. And then just want to thank staff for jumping on a maintenance request from one of my key constituents. So thank you for doing that this week. Everyone jumped on it. That's it.
Karen?
My only thing is that I met with some constituents in Christian Valley to talk about the canal area where it's been a long-standing tradition to walk that canal, and they're seeing more gates come up, and they wondered if we could help with setting guidelines around gate construction, where I'm going to be telling them politely that, no, we can't. So sorry, but Jen and Doug talked about it, and it's not really within our purview. So anyway, that interest remains to be able to use our beautiful canal for walking and running, and not happening.
It is
Like we don't control how that flow works. So anyway.
Not our property.
Yeah,
Not our problem.
most canals are on easement, and
Right.
people have private property rights, so we can't dictate what they do on their private property. So it's very difficult.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, I think as most everybody knows that there was a lot of time and energy expended by Jennifer on the mine hearings that just took place in the last week, before. I spent a lot of time there listening to, and Jennifer was fabulous. She was almost the star of the show, actually. I know, look at her scowling at me. Anyway, it was wonderful. NID was beloved by everybody there. They thanked me, thanked anybody having anything to do with NID for our participation. So there was that. I also attended the LAFCO hearing a couple days ago. Was it a couple days ago? Or was it last week? Gosh.
Yeah,
Okay. And there was a lot on the agenda that was very interesting. One of the things that I want to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about is, Rich brought up the Scotts Flat some of the downsides or the scary side of Scott's Flat.
The bookend.
Yeah, the bookend. And then I had a request from, the Homeowners Association to please submit an article for their newsletter about that very subject, because people are very frightened about when they hear what you are saying. So, Jennifer, thank you so much, and whoever else has helped. So we crafted an article to go out to the Scotts Flat neighborhood, Cascade Shores neighborhood, with regard to how the plan for water and how the impending state regulations may or may not impact Scotts Flat. So,
Could we share that communication? Because I think it's broader than just Scotts Flat area.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
would be very helpful for all of us.
well, yeah, so what I was gonna ask, the board and Jennifer, is that if we could have agendize just our messaging around that, because Rich and I give very different messages. And I think that it's really important for our board to talk about this with one voice, and because it's confusing for people. And so that's my request, is if we can have a greater discussion about not only Scotts Flat, but how it might impact Rollins or, any of these other, reservoirs and water systems that we have, so that we could speak with one voice to the public, because it is confusing and scary. People are being scared.
So the information that we utilized for the article, we just kind of shortened up what's on the website.
Right.
The website is great. So if you ever have any questions, or your constituents have questions, send them to the website. If you have a particular group that is really wanting to have conversations about it, we're happy as staff to come speak with them about potential impacts to NID, which are also delineated on the website. But I'm, open to whatever the board would like to do, if you want to bring it back. I hear the conversations. You're basically two sides of the same coin. You're
Right.
fundamentally saying the same thing.
Right.
I think that word choices are just a little bit different, which I don't know if you'll ever have all the same word choices.
My comment about the website is, I did go in and look at that for this article that we were putting together for the newsletter. And I actually found it, because I understand it, pretty understandable. But if you were a layperson living in Cascade Shores, I'm not sure that would be really helpful to you, because there's all these terms that are unfamiliar, and, so I just...
And in that situation, I do think it's best and I have offered to Cascade Shores that I will come speak to them. They have not taken me up on that offer yet. So we're always here.
Oh, we're working on it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, staff is always willing to come speak to an issue at any point.
Well, but I would go to Ricky's point. I think that's important, Jen, but there's a lot of more informal conversations that take place everywhere. And so I think, I agree that we should at least talk about what would the message be. If
We're talking about, plan for water
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah.
Well, no,
We're
it's
talking
just
about,
beyond that.
They're talking about unimpaired flow. So I
Unimpaired
had
flows,
sent
yeah.
out those talking points.
Right.
So this is beyond
Yeah,
plan for
well,
water.
that was very
It's
helpful.
a Bay Delta plan update.
I see.
So, let me be more clear. God bless. At the LAFCO hearing, Rich said that we are there is the potential for Scotts Flat to become a dead pool, which would then impact agriculture and likely end agriculture in Nevada County, as we know.
But
Well,
devastating.
okay. And I was just like, oh my God, and I looked at some of the people out in the audience, and they're freaked out. And then, I started getting the calls and the requests, just like that.
Yeah.
And so I thought, it would be better, and if that is our message, then that's our message. I'm okay with whatever it is.
Right.
But I wanted the board to hear what's going on, and maybe we can come up with a unified message, so that when I'm at the grocery store and someone says, oh my God, I heard that we're gonna lose Scotts Flat Lake. What am I saying? Am I saying?
Go talk to Rich.
No.
there you go. Go talk to Rich.
So that was, thank you for that support, Karen. That is
I-
my issue, is I wanted to have something other than the startling worst-case scenario, which may in fact happen, but
Well, actually, it has happened in the last 2-3 years, if Justin won't.
Scotch Flat
I'll
has
bring
not
it up.
gone to a dead
Not-
pool.
Not Scott
Okay.
Flat, but go ahead. Any more comments? We'll go to Chris.
Okay, that's it, but I wanted to know if that we have a consensus for talking about this messaging
Yeah.
amongst us, especially those of us that run into people all the time.
Is there consensus about bringing it to the board? Any head nods?
Well, I think we need
Oh,
to have.
to bring it to the board, yes, not talk about it here. Right, yeah,
Not today.
not today. That's my point, yes.
It's not agendized.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it behooves the board to have one message. Like, I mean, that seems a little contrived, there might be a fact sheet.
And
And
FAQ?
then how
Yeah.
we decide to interpret that into a message for our constituents, I think is up to each one of us. The company might have a message.
Right, so we currently have a lot of facts on the website. I've sent out the FAQ sheet. We've written 2 articles that were written by staff, so that's all fact-based. We try to stay
Right.
a little bit more neutral.
Yeah.
The truth is, there are impacts. Are we gonna turn into the Sahara Desert? You know, I don't know. But we just stick to the facts. In my experience, how that message is put out is much more aligned with what Director Calder stated, but we can bring it back. It doesn't matter to me. It's up to the board. If you would like me to bring this back, we can.
Karen?
It doesn't impact me, but I understand the concern, so I would support whatever you guys decide. Like, if you really wanted to have a discussion about it, I'm supportive for that.
That's what I would do. I would have a discussion. Maybe the end of the discussion is we are gonna say what we
Yeah,
have to
that could
say.
be, yeah.
But, I think it would be helpful to have the conversation, so.
Yes,
Ricky's
yes.
favor.
Yeah.
Maybe I could suggest that we could just start by going over the facts that are on the website, and then a conversation might spurn out of that.
Would you like to agendize this?
I will put it on the agenda.
Well, and
We'll have
especially-
it at the workshop.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Because we can workshop it.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be great. Thank you,
The
everyone.
workshop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chris?
Yes, okay, so one thing I have to report is I found myself needing the services of customer service at NID for an issue. I got this humongous bill that said if I didn't pay my bill, I wasn't getting water this year, so, I could not figure it out on my own, what the problem was. And so I thought it was one thing, and so I brought it in, and I can't remember the one gal's name. There's Stephanie, and who else in the, Melissa. I knew it started with an N. So Melissa was stellar at going through the computer and figuring out what was the matter. And we were both wrong. So it was such a pleasure, and not because she knew who I was. She obviously knew what she was doing and how to find it and sleuth it out. I have 5 accounts, and so we had these all across the desk, you know, and it was just, it was a testament to NID's customer service, and I want to commend Melissa and Stephanie for their figuring it out, and pretty fast too. So I still owed money.
The whole team's great.
Ooh, don't let him leave.
No, I already paid. Anyway, that's it.
And ditto on customer service, those guys are incredible.
Yeah.
So, also went to the LAFCO meeting, and also had phone calls afterward.
Based on the statement you made.
The statements Ricky made.
No, they left, well. And it was from some farmers who kind of remembered, but Justin, correct me if I'm wrong.
They want free water. Yeah.
2022, Lake Oroville almost went there,
Yeah.
the dead pool, and that was without the unimpaired
That for
flows.
settlement contractors, 18%.
Settlement contractors didn't get enough water to wet their canals. That was 2 years ago, year and a half.
Mhm.
So don't say it can't happen, because it has happened, and I think in Scotts Flat, 1977.
And in geological time, that wasn't that long ago. So
Things can happen.
in the farmer world, we're all prepared for the ultimate risk, so we can mitigate back from it and prevent things from like that from happening. The other thing is that the PR people at Sykes Reservoir are doing a heck of a job.
Yep.
Because they figured out that last winter and this winter, they would have filled 80% of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I still question that, but, knowing what I know, but they think they had the modeling to fill 80% of sites up to date, which is significant.
How many acre feet is it?
It's going to be 1.8, now it's 1.
I think it's around a million. I've kind of lost
I
track.
think it's a million too.
Mhm.
Yeah, 1.2.
There's a number of alternatives.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. That's it.
I think we're going to go into closed session, but prior to that, any public comment on the closed session items?
I do not anticipate any reportable action coming out of closed session.
Okay, well, we're going to close the open session. Take,
what do you think? How much time you got? 5? 5-minute break?
we'll start at 5 to 11.